Welcome, everybody, to the PFF College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Galina. And on today's podcast, because we have released our 2021 College Football Preview magazine, it's going to be me and Treash talking college football and talking about some of the stuff we learned from writing the magazine. 100,000 words, 600 pages, I think 9 pages per Power 5 team. All the details that you want to know about college football are in there. So go to pff.com, scoop that up with a PFF college grades or PFF Edge subscription. And if you don't have those things, get on it. Get on it. We talked about our sleeper pick for each Power 5 team. We talked about our favorite out-of-conference games. We picked 5 each. There was some overlap. And then as we've been doing the top 10 returning players, so we did top 10 returning interior offensive linemen. So yeah, it's just a good episode. And don't forget, College Football Preview magazine available at pff.com. So I hope you enjoyed the episode, and see you guys later. All right, Mr. Anthony Treash, what's going on?
Not much, man. I'm feeling pretty damn good because today is a very special day for both of us. We have finally had
I'm watching
the preview.
My Canadians play in the Stanley Cup Finals tonight.
I forgot.
Yeah, right. The preview mag came out today. That's true.
I always forget that you're up in Canada until you bring up some hockey shit that I have no idea what you're talking about.
When I come to Cincinnati, we're going to go to a Cincinnati Cyclones game. Cincinnati, I think they have an AHL team.
They do, yeah. But, I mean, they sell beer. That's the only thing I'd be looking forward to in that whole thing. I didn't even know NHL was still playing until I was reading your tweets, and I was like, oh, I guess they're still on right now.
I'm going to teach you about the neutral zone trap. All right. Yes, today is a big day because the College Football Preview mag that we worked very hard on came out, and you can get it on pff.com. And it's 600 pages, over 100,000 words written, and all the stats that you can imagine are on there. So very excited. If you listen to this podcast, go to pff.com, find out if you already subscribe to college football grades or PFF Edge, I believe, and then you can get it. If not, I'll find a way to get it, or message me and I'll find it. No, I'm kidding. Find a way to get it. All right, so we're talking. We've gone through all these teams in the Power 5 and the G5. So today on the program, we're talking sleepers for each Power 5 conference, and we are talking our favorite out of conference games next season. So let's get right into it. With the ACC, who's your sleeper pick? So you can't use Clemson. Who's your sleeper pick in the ACC to win the conference?
All right, I'm going to go Miami. And, I think some people are like, that's not really like a big sleeper pick.
Well, honestly, anyone that's not Clemson is a big sleeper pick in this conference.
I don't know if UNC is. I think some people are getting a little too spicy with I think that UNC hype is getting overboard. I think we started it before last season, and we thought they were underrated, but then they slowly became more overrated. And I think we're at that point with UNC, but I think Miami's in the underrated process right now. Assuming Derek King is fully healthy, he comes back from his torn ACL, and everything, all indications are he's way ahead of recovery. The rehab process is going perfect, as good as it possibly can be. He's going to be ready for that showdown with Bama come week 1. I think they could make some noise if we could see, Charleston Rambo, the Oklahoma transfer, coming in to try to be the top target for Miami. And Mike Harley, the veteran there that kind of emerged on the stretch last season, kind of just went from a raw athlete to more polished receiver just out of nowhere. It was amazing to see. And I think if they can have those guys kind of step up with Derek King there, and I think they also can need to get some help from the secondary too, some guys to emerge, possibly Georgia transfer Tyreek Stevenson, who played the slot there for the Bulldogs. Now it's going to play on the outside. I think of those pieces right there, kind of, take a step forward and play at their full potential. And Derek King is healthy. I mean, this team's going to be a really tough one to beat. And I think if Bryce Young doesn't come out, guns a-blazing in week 1, it could be a closer matchup than, what's the spread? 17.5? I couldn't really believe that.
So Anthony Treash says UNC is overrated. You'll see that on social media.
No. Don't do me like that. I think they're being a little bit a little bit overrated, just a little bit.
But
Because I think a lot of people are assuming that Sam Howell is a quarterback that can prop up everybody around him, and losing
exactly
Diami Brown, Daz Newsome, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter isn't going to be that big of a deal in the end of the day. No, like that is a huge, it's a massive deal. I think it's going to show. Especially if they can't get some production out of these younger wide receivers. Granted, they have the recruiting pedigree, but if they don't really take that step forward and produce at even half the level that Diami Brown or Daz Newsome did, then I would be very nervous about this team. We really don't know if Sam Howell's that kind of guy, or if Phil Longo's that type of the guy that can help prop some of these guys up. So that's why I think we need to kind of take a step back with UNC. I still love UNC. I would not be surprised if they did win the ACC. But what I'm saying is that I think, I think I would be a little bit more confident in Miami than UNC at this point.
Yeah, that's like in the tier 2 group of the ACC, like, again, being that Clemson is like in tier 1 by itself, I would think Miami finishes above UNC this year for a lot of the same reasons that you talked about. Just don't know. Howell has to be perfect, without these receivers, and you're losing guys, not just the running backs who we know about with the elusiveness and break tackleness. I mean, you're losing the receivers that were doing the same thing, that were taking shorter throws and creating explosive plays off of them. So you're just going to have to be so much more efficient if you're Sam Howell. Not that he wasn't, but like it's easier to be efficient when your playmakers are making plays for you. And what would have been a first down, and you got to go back to the huddle, like anyone huddles anymore, and do it again and do it again. We're becoming touchdowns. We're becoming 40-yard gains, 50-yard gains last year. So yeah, he's going to be more efficient. He's got to be better with his feet. I think better with his timing. He's a very good quarterback, but it's a big year for him. It's a big year for him because, we just talked about this, but if he was able to come out this year, or maybe let's say he'd opted out this year and we only had these first 2 seasons on tape, first round pick, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like he probably would have been a top 5 guy. I mean,
for me, the only thing he could do is go down, right? There's not a lot of room to go up anymore, and now you're playing this next season without a lot of your good players. So you got to hope some other guys step up. So that's I'm on the same page with, and then Miami has those receivers and they have the quarterback and the offensive line is better. So that's where I think we're all on Miami. And I think Miami's defense is probably better too. All right, my sleeper pick in the ACC is none other than the Pitt Panthers. More because, look, the defense does lose some players, but they're going to be good again. They're always good under Pat Narduzzi. He gets the most out of his defense. You have a quarterback, and I don't have the exact number here, but I believe Kenny Pickett is going to his 17th year as starter of the Pitt Panthers. It's going to click eventually. They bring in Brandon Marion to run the receiver room there. Maybe they'll, he's had so much success running his offenses wherever he's been. Maybe they can incorporate some of that go-go stuff there. And I just feel like, I have my Kenny Pickett thing. I have love for Kenny Pickett because I do feel like he's been playing in an offense that I don't like. When you look at the 2 quarterbacks that we just talked about, Derek King, Sam Howell, and they play in offenses that really work for the quarterback. And I'm not sure the offense that they've run before at Pitt has really worked for the quarterback. It's tough. They're tough offenses. They ask you to do a lot. And so I hope that they can simplify it a bit and we can really see who Kenny Pickett is. And then we could make a real decision on who Kenny Pickett is and then whether Pitt's going to go. Again, do I really think they're going to win the ACC title? No, I don't think that. But I think they're an interesting kind of case study in what happens when you don't run the offense that everyone else is running in college football. So that's my pick, and I just wanted to talk about that for a second. All right, let's get to the.
I mean, you lost me at when you were talking about Kenny Pickett. You said eventually everything just kind of has to click. Yeah, that's when you lost me. I do like the receiver Jordan Addison, and the defense, like you said, it's still going to be great. But they're going to win. They're going to win 7 games again,
probably.
And they're going to be playing in I don't know what bowl game, but some middle of the tier 1. that nobody's going to watch. I love Pitt. Ben Lindsay, our guy, he went to Pitt, hail to Pitt. But it's just not their year. It's going to be a slightly above 500 team again, like it always has been.
All right, let's move to the Big Ten. I already know. Who is your pick for? It's your team. Who is your pick for the Big Ten sleeper team?
I mean, it's Indiana. you know 100% it's Indiana. Yeah, and I think a lot of this depends on, of course, the durability of Michael Penix Jr. and also if he can just kind of like reel in the accuracy, because it's quite bizarre. Because we talk about it all the time. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback that ranks so highly on accurate pass rate, but also so highly on uncatchable pass rate, and have such a low sliver of catchable but inaccurate passes. I mean, he's either dead on or he's completely off the map, and I think that's kind of a big concern too. As well as the offensive line, because it still is not going to get a whole lot better. The run blocking, I think, is fine, but the pass protection is just really, really bad. And two, losing Walt Phillier, that doesn't help either. But I do think, the addition of DJ Matthews, a Florida State speedster, he's going to kind of take over that Walt Phillier role. I think it's going to help ease it. And I think we're going to see some positive regression for the tight end Peyton Endershot, who had a just uncharacteristically bad season last year. It was so much different than what he did in 2019. And then two, you look at the defensive side of the ball. The defensive line is still not good, but they did add a couple of transfers that I am intrigued with. I'm curious to see how they're going to perform. One from Ole Miss and another from Western Kentucky. And then the secondary too. I mean, they returned everybody besides Jamar Johnson, the safety. Tywan Mullen, he's a guy inside-outside versatility. He's just a feisty player. A brother of Trayvon Mullen, Las Vegas Raiders corner. Little brother actually just committed to Indiana, 4-star recruit, next year's class, I think it is. But two, I mean, he's not the only guy there. They have Reese Taylor, Jalen Williams, both cornerbacks, and then Devon Matthews, Monster Matthews, one of the best nicknames, safety there, leading that defense with Micah McFadden, one of the best off-ball blitzing linebackers. And what I love about it is that they're not going to deviate from the system that made them so successful last year on the defensive side of the ball. They lost their defensive coordinator, Kane Womack, now at South Alabama, the head coach there. They're going to keep that same system in place. Tom Allen hired a guy with Warren there to make sure that system did not change. And they want to keep it so, they have that high blitz rate. They throw those coverage rotations out there when they need to. And they, kind of rotate Tywan Mullen too, where he does have those inside-outside versatilities, blitz those, the nickel all the time. And it worked a lot last season. So, I'm curious to see, how much the interception and turnover luck kind of, comes back more towards the mean, because there were some lucky interceptions they had in there. But I think as long as Michael Penix Jr. stays healthy, they're going to put up a fight all year long. And it's going to be an interesting one. I think, if I'm correct, though, the bad part about this is that the one game they have to win, that's the most questionable on that schedule, is obviously the Ohio State one. I'm pretty sure Ohio State's coming off a bye. I could be wrong, but if I recall correctly, yeah, I think that's how it is, and that's obviously not good for them. But that game, the game against Cincinnati too, those are going to be two to watch this season.
All right, my team for a sleeper pick in the Big Ten is Minnesota. Obviously, we saw them have a really good year in 2019, and then completely just nothing in 2020. I feel like you won't see as bad a play. I was never a huge Tanner Morgan fan, but I don't think you'll see as bad as a play as you did in 2020. I think, yes, you lose, back-to-back years, you lose Tyler Johnson and you lose Rashad Bateman, but I think Chris Autman-Bell is a really good player. I think PJ Fleck has always done a good job of coaching up receivers and finding receivers that can make plays for his team. So that doesn't really worry me. Offensive line and the running game is going to be fantastic. Both pass pro and, running the football, they're going to be really good. Defense cannot be as bad as they were last year. This is like a team that just could not stop the run. They could not. It was one of the worst rushing defenses that I honestly have probably ever seen. Could not stop the run. Even bad teams were running on them like crazy. So it's just like it can't be as bad. And so I think we could see another 2019 type of Minnesota season. Because, again, Tanner Morgan, like I said about Kenny Pickett, he's coming back for his 8th season. So I just believe that it'll be better much better than the 2020 season. So again, sleeper pick. Are they going to one up Ohio State for the conference? Probably not. But I think they're going to be so much better than they were last season.
I mean, I like it, especially if they can find a quality number two outside of Chris Altman-Bell. I think that would do wonders because I mean they do have all the other pieces in place there. I mean, obviously losing your guy Benjamin St. Juste, that's a big loss. But they still have Cody Durr there too. Justice Harris, he's a veteran safety who I think he's going to break out this season, late career breakout. And also too, PJ Fleck. I mean, I love that guy. Yeah. And when Austin talked to him and he said they run a lot of RPOs because they believe in the 78% theory. This was one of the most PJ Fleck things I've ever heard. But it caught my eye. He said they did a 50-year study across high school, college, and NFL. Found that you win the game 78% of the time when you miss fewer tackles, force more tackles, win the turnover battle, win the explosive plays battle, and RPOs keep your completion percentage incredibly high, helps you protect the ball. That's why they do it. And I agree with you with Tanner Morgan. He's just a good college quarterback. Yeah. He can be a good college quarterback.
All right, we're heading to the Big 12. Who is your pick for a sleeper team there?
I kind of want to change it up. I was going to go with TCU, but I think I might change it to West Virginia because I like that quarterback a lot better. We're going back in on it. Jared Deggy, we're on the hype train. One of our interns, actually, Tej, he pulled up a stat one day, sent it to me, unknowingly that we were just absolutely in love with Jared Deggy as a player, and he happened to be at the very top of that, and it was, EPA, I believe it was EPA above expectation generated. And he was up there near the top with guys like Justin Fields, and it just goes to show that the situation really was not all that great there. And I think there is going to be some, kind of the bounce back there. I do like Winston Wright there. I think he's going to be the top guy there. I think he's going to develop into a more well-rounded receiver. In the defense, too, they lose Tyke Smith. They lose Drayshawn Miller to the SEC, but they also still return a bevy of very talented guys. They could be the best secondary in the Big 12 next season. So I think I'm going to roll with West Virginia, even though TCU, I just don't have much faith in Max Duggan, even though he did prove us wrong a little bit last year. I just can't see him kind of developing into that above average quarterback that you need to be a sleeper team, even though the roster around him is just stupid talented. Quentin Johnston, J.D. Spielman, talent's there at receiver. Mm-hmm. Defense too, it's loaded from head to toe. Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, LaDainian Tomlinson's nephew, if I recall correctly. A lot of talent there. Just I don't believe in the quarterback.
So I'm going with Oklahoma State because I think, the defense has been pretty good the past few years. Offense takes a step back, but is that just entirely on the quarterback? It's very possible. And I don't think that Spencer Sanders is going to be as bad as he's been. I just can't believe a guy going to his third year starting is going to keep missing the throws. I mean, we're talking about easy throws that he's missing. And if he puts it together a little bit, when I say easy throws, I mean easy, wide open misses. And it's like, okay, are you going to do that on third year? Like you're practicing every day, you're trying to get better. And I don't believe that's going to happen again. They're my sleeper pick because I think Gundy can still run a good offense. And like I said, the defense is going to be good. And the quarterback play that has been so bad can't be as bad again. And it's not like it was that bad. I mean, we still have him as like a top 50 quarterback, but like,
top 50. I feel like there's a distinct, because I think some people, they see like, oh, he's 31st out of 130. That's pretty good. But it's like, well, no, not really. If you're a Power 5 quarterback, I don't know. I thought you were saying that because you thought our boy Shane Illingworth is eventually going to take over.
No, I think Sanders is going to be the starter. They clearly like him, and that's fine. And he does some good things. Not like he does everything bad, but I think the things that you need to do well to win games, he doesn't do very well, which is kind of a problem. Right. But like I said, go ahead.
I was going to say that I think my big concern too is they have no Tylan Wallace.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, well, no Tylan Wallace to go make plays for him, but he'll just be better. So he won't need as much. I mean, you always
Okay.
need a Tyler Wallace, but you won't need as much that type of player. All right, let's go to the Pac-12. Who's your pick?
I'm gonna go Washington. I think Dylan Morris. He showed a little bit on a
It's
very
like you're
small
like,
sample.
oh, it's something there. Yeah.
I know we always talk about it. We talk about it all the time. Don't fall in love with the small sample. And I'm not. I
But
mean,
we're gonna do it
very.
though.
Right? I'm being very cautious with this. But I think I'm going to go with Washington just because I think the defense is going to be very, very good again. And I think you look at the offenses that are in the Pac-12, they're really bad. I mean, they are supremely bad. If USC does not kind of turn things around like they should, then I could theoretically see Washington's defense kind of carrying the load there for him. I think Trent McDuffie, he's one of the best cornerbacks in all of college football. They did have a big lose on the edge there with Zion tearing his Achilles tendon. I think that's going to be rough for him. They still have Ryan Bowman, though, coming back. He's a very good pass rusher. And also, too, I'm looking forward to seeing Kyler Gordon on the outside as well. Brendan Radley-Hiles, former Oklahoma slot cornerback, he's an interesting player to watch. Sometimes he does have those moments where you're like, you kind of went a little bit too far, those dirty moments. He's had a few questionable hits. The penalties have been a little bit of an issue. But he's a good coverage guy. And I think they have all the pieces in place there on defense, too, to really kind of be one of the best defenses in college football. And I think that can get you really far, especially if we see Dylan Morris kind of perform as we did this past season in just the few games that we did see from him. Just because, he did have, a PFF grade above 80.0, took very good care of the football, threw the ball, effectively downfield. So, I think this is a team they'll keep an eye on. I think they also need some wide receivers to step up as well. Giles Jackson, he was a guy that I was always high on from Michigan. He's transferring there. It's out. He ends up emerging, but he's just a name to keep an eye on too. And so I think there is some intrigue with this Washington team, but my heart still lies with USC always.
Yeah, I'm going with Utah because going back to the quarterback situation, I think there's a theme here, but it's like the quarterback, and this case is Charlie Brewer, transfer from Baylor, will not play as bad as he has over the past couple of years. So then therefore there's a lot of talent there at Utah. The defense is going to be good again. And, I think that they did some good stuff early in Charlie Brewer's career at Baylor to insulate him. And I don't think they insulated him enough last year under Larry Fedora. And Larry Fedora, even though Brewer's gone, he's transferred, but Larry Fedora was already out 1 year, only lasted 1 year at Baylor. So clearly they weren't happy with what he was doing there. They replaced him with Jeff Grimes. So Brewer coming to Utah, and it's not quite the same offense, really not really at all the same offense that Baylor was running with Matt Rule, now with Andy Ludwig and Kyle Whittingham at Utah. But I think it's a type of offense that could help them. They're gonna go under center, they're gonna run play action, they're gonna try and create some big plays off play action like that, turn your back to the defense, hard play action, and then they're gonna try and not do too much with him, which is, I think, the problem of last year's Baylor team. Was they tried to do too much with him, and he's probably not that type of quarterback. But if you can kind of get his feet wet a little bit and slowly build him back up, I think there's a good quarterback there somewhere. A good college quarterback. Again, he's not this toolsy player, but I think he's probably a good college quarterback there. So hopefully for them, and this team could have been really good with a quarterback last year. So I'm hoping that with a quarterback this year, another transfer quarterback, that they are going to be good this year.
Well, they love him too. They are gushing about him over there. They think comparing him to Jake Bentley. It's night and day. And I think one of my favorite stats that I've ever found is his over the last 3 years. I sent this to you probably a month ago. I just dug it up. Charlie Brewer's play action passing grade: 2018, 89.3; 2019, 89.1; 2020, 44.0. It's just not going to happen again.
And like I said, it's a different offense. The play action grade incorporates all the RPOs that they were running and stuff like that. And then with Fedora, it was a completely different air raid style passing game that just didn't fit him. All right, last Power 5 conference, the SEC. Who you got?
I'm gonna go Missouri. Yeah,
You heard it
and
here
I think,
first, folks. Missouri is going to win the SEC.
No. We're not putting that on the quote graphic. I mean, if anyone's listening to this at PFF, do not put this on a quote graphic. Put the Pitt one on there that Seth said. No, with Missouri, the defense is not good. The cornerback situation is extremely rough. They did add a guy from Tulsa, a Caleb Evans. I think he's going to be good for him. He will be a good cornerback, but still, he can't do it all himself. It is a really rough situation outside of him. I'm a big fan of Kobe Whiteside, the nose tackle. We've talked about him before in the past. I think if fully healthy, he's the guy. But outside of those two guys, I'm very concerned with that defense. But on the other hand, I think the offense is going to be pretty good. I think Connor Bazelak is exactly what Eli Drinkwitz needs in that offense. He performed exceptionally well. I think he was probably one of the more underrated players in college football last season. I mean, considering he played against only, SEC teams, and he still managed to produce, at the level that he did. PFF grade just above 75.0, which is pretty good. Again, against SEC teams, started to merge there down the stretch too. So I think, there's some intrigue there as well, but they also need some pass catchers to step up. I think the offensive line's still going to be in good shape despite seeing Larry Borum go away. But I think, I'm not going to say they're a sleeper team to win the SEC, but I think they could be a sleeper team that could sneak up on a few teams. Like, they're not going to be a walk in the park, as they have been.
Yeah, no, I like Missouri. I think they're a team on the rise. My pick is going to be Ole Miss. I'm like cringing as I say that. Ole Miss winning the SEC. Look, yeah, they're not going to win the SEC, I don't think, but they could be a really interesting sleeper team because the defense can't be as bad as it was last year. It's just like I don't think it's like possible to be as bad as first of all, I didn't think it was possible to be as bad as they were on defense just in general. Like, I didn't think you could be that bad. And then B, it's like, okay, well then no way that excuse me. It's like no way they're going to be as bad again on defense. So, the offense will be fine. They do lose a lot of players, but I think Lane Kiffin and Levy can put it together. Plus, they bring back Matt Corral. They bring back a running game. So, like, if the defense is like, I'll ask the question. What would the defense, like, in terms of like overall like EPA per play rank? What would it have to be for them to win the SEC West? Like, get to the championship game.
I mean, it also depends on the offense. Like, does the offense?
The offense is good. The offense is
the output stays the same.
10. Yeah,
it stays the same. I mean, let's see, what were they? They can't. I feel like they have to be at least average, right? Because they were almost
somewhere
dead
in the
last.
60s, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get away with the 70s or so, and then I think now we're talking. Now we're cooking with fire. I think they could put up some points. If they still manage to put up the production they had on offense, the passing offense, without Elijah Moore, I think that would be incredible.
Yeah.
I like Pearson, the guy they got from Western Kentucky. He had a great year a couple of years ago, back in 2019. But Elijah Moore, he was just exceptional for him, perfect fit for that offense. And I think he's almost in that irreplaceable type of tier. But that defense, yeah, if that production stayed the same, they'd have to be somewhere in the 60s, I would say, minimum.
All right, let's move on here to the out-of-conference games that we're very, very interested in watching. You want to go first here? Pick your game.
Let's see here. So I was going to say Miami, Bama, but I already went into that one.
No, but that's a good one. I just feel like I'm thinking about this one, but this is the issue right now, where it's like we're going to hype this game up. Miami, they're going to bring it. Here we go, and they're going to lose 40-17.
And probably. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. At the end of the day, I still don't think it should be a 17.5. I think it's 17.5. But I'm going to say another week one game, and it's probably one that you're not expecting. I'm going to go Western Michigan, because I think Western Michigan is capable of beating Michigan, and yet I think they're also 17.5-point dogs.
Quote graphic.
At Western Michigan, they have some pieces in place there. I like Caleb Ellaby. I think he performed exceptionally well this past season, elite level. I like Sky Moore. On the defensive side of the ball, man, Ali Fayed, he's a veteran edge defender. Dude's got a crafty spin move. He's going to produce at an elite level for him. And I think there's just I think they just have enough mismatches where I think they can make a competitive game a lot more than a lot of people think. I didn't even plan on saying that. It just pops in my head. And then I remembered how fired up I was when it was like 2 a.m. a couple weeks ago and I saw that they were that big of dogs against Michigan. Because I don't think Michigan's going to be that good again. I just don't know what direction Michigan's really going. You know what I mean?
I have no clue about Michigan. So the Alabama Miami game, I didn't even put it in my top 5 list because I was like, I just don't, like I said, I just feel like it's going to be underwhelming. And I hope Miami wins, but I just feel like it's going to be underwhelming. My first pick was just a biased pick, LSU in the Rose Bowl playing against UCLA. I love watching LSU play in places that I've never seen them play before. And the Rose Bowl is one of them. I'd love to see them play in the Rose Bowl game at some point. Hopefully maybe for a national championship or a playoff semifinal would be great. But it's always just fun to see, I got to watch them in the Fiesta Bowl a couple years ago, and just see them play. I love watching my favorite team play. I know UCLA it's not UCLA. They're not very good, but I love watching them play in good out of conference games and not just play cupcakes all the time. So even though
there's some intrigue there.
Yeah.
Is DTR finally gonna,
right,
be better as a passer? I mean, he does have a very good supporting cast around him. I mean, so I kind of like it. I'm not gonna dog that one. I'm gonna say my number 2 pick, Ohio State, Oregon, and it's mostly just because I want to see. Too. Yeah, I want to see Kayvon Thibodeau against Thayer Munford and Nicolas Pate-Frere. I can't do the French accent like you can, but I think that's exactly. I think that's an intriguing matchup there. And I'm also curious too is, do you think Anthony Brown's going to be starting for Oregon at quarterback for the entire season? I don't think he will be because he did not show a lot at Boston College to get me like, oh, this guy can start at Oregon, even though the Pac-12 is really not all that good. I think at some point we're going to see the true freshman, Ty Thompson, come in and try and, kind of save the day, save the year for him. That's my bold prediction for Oregon this year.
Yeah, the Oregon quarterback situation is super intriguing because obviously the roster is one of the best in the Pac-12, but it could be undone by bad quarterback play. So they might go to the freshman early. Okay, I put Cincy at Notre Dame. That's crazy because you're getting Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame defensive coordinator, who was Cincinnati's defensive coordinator. So you wonder if Cincinnati can figure out a way to, because they'll have game film on it. I don't think it's not till like October 2nd, so they'll know everything they need to know about that defense, and we'll see if it's the same defense that they saw at Cincinnati. Then maybe they have some answers for it, and maybe the Cincinnati team is that good. Maybe they are a team that can legitimately hang with Power 5 conference teams on a weekly basis. I mean, obviously they played Georgia pretty tough in the bowl game last year, and hopefully it continues over this year, and we see a really good game between those two teams.
Yeah, I mean, I had that one listed too, and I think it's very interesting because I think at the end of the day they're both going to run. That's kind of the same defenses that they're inheriting, and I'm wondering if they're just going to start to throw some curveballs out there for this one. And I think that's why it's going to make it a very interesting affair. I'm also going to go with another Notre Dame game.
Me too.
Is it? I think we got the same one. Your boy Jack Cohn revenge game against Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's not only that, but it's also you have Graham Mertz actually going up against an actual defense, an actual coverage unit. And I'm kind of excited to see with Graham Mertz, and we talked about it before. He lit up Illinois. It was one of the best debuts I've ever seen at quarterback. And he was perfect. Didn't throw an uncatchable ball. Over 20 passes. We've only seen that like 2 times in the PFF college era. I think Justin Fields had the other one. But then he just kind of fell apart, but reportedly was playing through a shoulder injury, had to get injections and shit like that. How much did that affect the rest of his year's play? Because he was not the same quarterback at all at any point in time in the rest of the year. And so that's what I want to keep an eye on. Plus the Jack Cohn revenge game. Jack Cohn at Notre Dame. He's I don't think I'm as high on Jack Cohn just because I don't like the way he throws the deep ball at all. I hate it. it bothers me to watch because it's just so just like chucks up in the air. And it's like, why are you throwing that? Because we're in the era, we're in the era where we fall in love with the deep balls. He's kind of the exact opposite quarterback of like Sam Howell, like exactly the exact opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I like Cone because of that. Because like
came from a hard system and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think he's gonna run the Notre Dame offense better than Ian Book did. He's gonna run it on time, which I think is important. So yeah, I'm excited for that game. It's in Chicago, I believe, too. I think last year was supposed to be at Lambeau. And obviously that got canceled. I really hope that some of these games get the games that were canceled for 2019, like this one was supposed to happen. The Oregon OSU game was supposed to happen in Autzen. I would love to see that. Like not just one game at the Horseshoe, but whatever, we'll take it.
Notre Dame and Navy, they're supposed to play in Dublin. Now opening up College game day, that was heartbreaking.
Yeah. Okay, and then my last one. So we've gone through the four that I have. The last one kind of is actually the number one game, but it's Georgia and Clemson to open the season, because that is going to be a close game, I would imagine, right? This is not going to be a blowout. It could be one of the games of the season. So I'm super excited about that one. Two teams that believe that they can win a national title, and I don't think that either of them are wrong, obviously.
I think like the variance with these teams, like both of these teams, it's so big. So much potential. It's just a lot of unproven potential. JT Daniels too. I mean, we're beating a dead horse at this point, but can he have that same success that he did in that one game? Because the other three games, they were not as good. Can he replicate it against this Clemson team opening night, one of the biggest games of the year? It's going to be an interesting one to see. And also, Arik Gilbert playing, mostly wide receiver as well. The defensive side of the ball, Darion Kendrick at corner, Kelee Ringo, just so much physical raw talent. Can they piece together, beat Clemson? I don't know. I don't know who I'm siding with right now. I'm going to hold off on making a pick on that one.
All right. So we'll save the picks for a couple months from now, for 2 months from now. But yeah, so those are our favorite out of conference games. Do you have another one on the list?
No, we picked them all. You right, read
perfect.
my mind.
Yeah, I think these games are the ones that I'm definitely looking forward to. It's going to be really nice to see out of conference games again. Like it's like one of the things that you miss, and it's not even like I know Miami, Alabama is neutral site game and stuff like that. Like that's whatever. I just want to see Oregon coming to the Horseshoe. Like that's so cool. LSU going to the Rose Bowl. That's so cool. Yeah, I'm excited for those type of games. The home and away out of conference games to come back, because we missed them. In these uncertain times, life is full of questions like, when should I start thinking about life insurance? But however difficult these questions may be, Western and Southern can help you answer them. Backed by over 130 years of experience, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind. Western and Southern Financial Group, life insurance, retirement, and investments. Compensated endorser, products issued by member companies of Western and Southern Financial Group, Cincinnati, Ohio. I want you guys to remember that if you are listening to this PFF podcast, we have other great podcasts on our PFF podcast network, which covers, of course, the NFL, fantasy football, and this show, college. So you can recap the NFL draft with PFF Mike and PFF Austin on 2-for-1 Drafts. Probably one of the best podcasts out there, in my opinion. You can check out Ian Hardett's fantasy football podcast and get a leg up on your league. I'm going to need it next year, because I finished very poorly last season in fantasy football. And get all your 2021 betting content with the PFF Forecast, another great podcast. So a lot of podcasts on the network. Make sure you tune into all of them. Okay, and to finish off, we are going through, as we've been doing every week, the top 10 returning players at each position. We are doing interior offensive linemen. That means guards and centers. And let's get into it right away. Number one returning player is a center from Iowa, Tyler Linderbaum, sorry. And what do you like about him?
Yeah, he's probably like my favorite offensive lineman in all of college football. I mean, I thought he would have been a top 50 pick if he came out last year, I would believe. He's a fantastic athlete, great movement skills. Former wrestler. There was a video that I started going on. I don't know if it went fully viral, but it went football Twitter viral. Him beating his former teammate Tristan Wirfs in high school. I mean, this guy's an absolute dog out there on the mat. I think he played like 4 or 5 sports in high school too, which you love to see. Came to Iowa, defensive lineman in 2018, kicked to center on the other side of the ball in 2019. Ended up being one of the 5 highest graded Power 5 centers, and then was the highest graded Power 5 center this past season. He's just kind of he's the complete package there. Working on adding some weight there too. And I think he's the best overall lineman in college football.
Number 2, Kane Madden, who is now the Notre Dame guard, who was at Marshall, had a great season at Marshall, and now comes to Notre Dame, like just the perfect time, I think, for both player and program to come there, because they lose. Notre Dame obviously loses a lot of talent, and now Kane Madden comes in. He's going to start, and he's going to play in the Power 5, which is really good, cool for him.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was just perfect timing for both parties. Kane Madden, his run blocking, it wasn't until this past season that we really started to see, elite level play from him in that facet. He was rarely out of control. One of the lowest negatively graded run blocking rates in college football this past season. Paired that with an 82.0 pass block grade. I think the biggest thing that I want to see from him this upcoming season, he's got to get better with the stunt recognition. He has to get improved. I think that's kind of the big fatal flaw, and I think that might hurt him a little bit, especially when he's going up against some of these tougher defensive fronts. Getting that first taste of actual, competition, not necessarily facing some of the kind of level of competition he faced at Marshall. But I, obviously still think highly of him because we have him there at number 2. I think this was a fantastic get for Notre Dame. And even though they lost 4 starters, all of which are on NFL rosters right now, I still think they're going to have one of the better offensive lines in college football. I don't think that's a hot take.
We'll get to Patterson in a second. Number 3, Grant Gibson, NC State. Talking about having a good offensive line. And NC State could have a very good offensive line this year.
Yeah, 100%. We talked about it too with Keem the other day. Grant Gibson, another athletic defensive tackle to center convert. This past season was just well polished, both in pass protection and as a run blocker. Produced a grade above 80.0, both of those facets, something only 5 other Power 5 centers did. 4 in the NFL, the other one, Tyler Linderbaum. So he's definitely up there, right behind Linderbaum as the second best center, top 3 interior offensive lineman in our eyes.
So number 4, Jared Patterson, Notre Dame. Think maybe he could move out to tackle, but either way, I think Notre Dame's going to have a really good offensive line again next year.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the big question mark. And I think why it's so murky right now. So Jared Patterson, last 2 years, started at center, has been great. 11th. We always include Notre Dame in the Power 5 conversation because they're a Power 5 program. It does not matter that they're independent. They play a Power 5 schedule. And they have Power 5 talent on roster. He's 11th among Power 5 centers in PFF grade back in 2019, jumped to 6th in 2020. But I think, there's a big kind of, I don't know this for certain, but I think there is kind of an argument there that, one party wants to stay at center, another one wants to move to tackle. And I think that's why it's a little bit murky right now, and they're trying to figure that out. I think at this point, he would be good at tackle, but given what he's done at center the last couple of years, I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Yeah. I think that's kind of where I would lean with the whole situation. But it'll be interesting. That's a situation to monitor.
Number 5, guard Justin Schaefer from Georgia. I think, I don't think it's funny. We don't really talk about Georgia having this great, they obviously produced a lot of great offensive linemen over the past few years, but for some reason we just never talk about Georgia having a complete offensive line. So will they this year?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think they will. We talked about Jamari Salyer last week when we were talking about the offensive tackles with Justin Schaefer. He finally grabbed a starting job this past season. There was some, inconsistencies a little bit from time to time, but the high-end play that we saw from him this past season was too good to ignore. He had one of the highest positively graded run blocking rates in the Power 5 last season, top 10 in that metric. I was quite impressed with how he performed on those true pass sets, which we had a big discussion about last week of why that's so important with offensive line play. I was quite impressed with what he did, given he was a first-time starter going up against only SEC competition. And he ended up playing his way into the top 5 spot, returning.
Number 6, guard Alec Lindstrom from Boston College.
Yeah, repping Not a Boston College fan, but I have the shirt, and I figure we're talking about some offensive line, and Boston College, notoriously good offensive line. They're having another damn good one this year. Alec Lindstrom, the little brother of former Boston College offensive lineman as well, Chris Lindstrom, now Atlanta Falcon. Low expectations coming out, obviously, 2-star recruit, but he ended up developing into a standout pass protector, like his older brother. This past season, he's top 12 in pass block grade. I think the biggest thing with him is like I'm curious to see if this is kind of his limit, just because when the time came to face the defensive lines of Clemson and Pitt, and I think those are very important games for when you're evaluating ACC defense or offensive linemen. How do they perform against Pitt and Clemson? It really wasn't all that great, but I think the pieces and tools are there for him to be a very good player, and I still think he is a very good player. Obviously, he's there at number 6, so. Boston College are going to have a very good offensive line. I think it's going to be also on Phil Dracovic to kind of, play a little bit more tame and not kind of bring some of this pressure on himself and be so willing to break the pocket. But it's we should have talked about him earlier when we were talking about sleeper teams in the ACC. Boston College could really be one. They really could, especially if we see some kind of improvements, because I think the defense kind of struggled to get acclimated to that Ohio State system this past year.
Number 8, going back to the Big Ten, guard Kyler Schott. Whoa. I missed one. Number 7.
Yeah.
Center from Illinois, Doug Kramer.
What the hell? Yeah, you can't miss on my boy, Doug, like that. Yeah, especially after the 2020, the dude had it rough. He had a very rough season just because, he had to quarantine for a few weeks due to COVID-19. And when you're an offensive lineman, it's probably not ideal. He had a rough time coming back, rusty in his next 2 games. And when he started to, finally find his footing, looked like the Doug Kramer that we saw in 2018 to 2019. He had an ankle injury. But at the end of the day, you look back at what those 2 seasons were prior to the COVID impact of 2020, and he was exceptional. He maintains his blocks exceptionally well on the move, puts defenders on the ground like clockwork. I mean, back in 2019, he had the most big-time run blocks that we've ever seen from a Power 5 center in the PFF college era. I think Landon Dickerson actually might have tied it this past year. But he's just a very good run blocker, and I think that offensive line is an interesting one. He's also very good, too, when you look at those true pass sets. Illinois' offensive line, I think it has the potential to be a top – I'd say their ceiling is a top 5 in all of college football, but they're not quite there yet. I think they just kind of had a tough time of piecing it all together at the right time. But the potential is there for that offensive line to be really, really good.
Okay, number 8. Guard Kyler Schott from Iowa. Iowa's clearly going to be very good on the interior. They lose some players on the outside from the offensive line, but I think they're going to be really good, and it's kind of why a lot of people like Iowa.
Yeah, and with Iowa, they don't have a whole lot of experience there. They're riding on inexperience, but I think the flashes that we've seen, and like you say, don't overreact to the small samples. But what we've seen from some of the guys that are going to have to step up, I think that's pretty promising. And guys like Kyler too that can anchor that with Linderbaum. I think Cody Ince, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's going to kick over to tackle. He performed exceptionally well at guard for Iowa this past season. Kyler Schott, he's just one of the better pass protectors, former walk-on too. Had an 87.4 pass block grade this past year, just 1 pressure allowed. And considering the fact that he kind of had an injury that knocked him out a few games mid-year, only could play in 5 games. It was a seamless transition there. So I was impressed with what he did this past year. I think with him and Tyler Linderbaum, it's going to be a very good offensive line. I think it's one of the best in college football.
Moving on, number 9, guard Emil Ekiyor from Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's he's just a powerful guy. He's just a big, powerful unit. Keeping the Alabama standard there. Very good on man runs. You saw it this past season. One of the highest positively graded run block rates on such run concepts. He's just not. I think the athleticism, more so just the quicks, dealing with that. I think that's kind of the big question mark with him. But he's got a lot of potential there riding with him. I think that Alabama line does have a lot of potential across the board to be maybe the best. But I'm not even going to put him in the top 5 quite yet.
And last but not least, number 10, guard Osiris Torrance from Louisiana, who's honestly, that's a team that's produced some really, really good offensive linemen over the past few years there. And they're going to have another good running game.
Yeah, and this guy's got a crazy background. And he was 420 pounds in the 8th grade. 420 pounds. And he slimmed down a little bit. He's 6'5", 332 right now. And late in the process, too, he was having some big schools kind of hit him up. Georgia made a late push for him back in the 2019 class. But he wanted to stick with Louisiana and be a Raging Cajun. He was kind of thrown into the fire his true freshman season. There was an injury along the offensive line in the season opener. And he was a little rough at the start, but right from that point on, he was one of the best offensive linemen in college football. He was the highest graded interior offensive lineman as a among true freshmen in 2019. And in this past season, he had the 3rd best pass block grade among all FBS guards. Didn't allow a single sack or hit across 713 pass block snaps as an underclassman. I mean, that is an absurd number. He did not have either one of those, add a 1 to the column. So I'm quite impressed with him. I think he's one of the most underrated players in college football. I'm excited to see what he can do from this point forward.
All right, there you have it. Top 10 returning interior offensive linemen. Stay tuned next week, and you will hear the top 10 returning edge defenders as we move to defense. All right, so don't forget PFF College Football Preview Magazine out now on PFF.com. Link just go to PFF.com. You see the big headline, big link. Click on that, and you can get it if you have a College Football Grade subscription, PFF Edge subscription. If not, go get one. First of all, what are you doing without a PFF subscription? Because you should all have it if you want to. Honestly, really, if you want to win your fantasy league, that's you need it, right?
I always tell people when they say, should I get it? And I was like, well, you honestly will make your money back. Whether you're a bettor, if you like fantasy or if you're a gambler, you're going to make your money back if you got it. So that's my selling point. It works every time because it has not failed me yet. Yeah.
So get on there. And like I said, we put a lot of time and effort into this thing, and you can find stuff like I always say, you can just find stuff that you can't get anywhere else in any other preview magazines. I actually had to stop playing. I'm retiring from fantasy football. I'm going to make my retirement plug. I'm retiring from fantasy football because I kept winning. Swear. It wasn't fun anymore. And so if you want to get on that level, you just get a PFF subscription. You get the PFF College Magazine, and then you also can read some of the fantasy stuff from our guys like Ian, who are just some of the brightest minds in that side of things. I'm retiring from fantasy football because I don't win ever. So,
well, you're not using our tools properly then.
Yeah, well, I overdraft my favorite players, so that's why I shouldn't be doing that anymore.
I'm not surprised.
All right, so take care, guys, and we will see you next week.